Hi everyone, it's Paul from This Designer. As you can see, I've got a new lathe and I'm in my new shed. If you're interested to see how I built this shed, I've got a playlist. You can see that at the top here. But today I'm going to go over this new lathe, which is the BL290F. I got this from Amadeal in the UK, but it is made by Weiss. That is a Chinese brand. And this is a very, very common model that you will see being rebranded by all of the various different manufacturers here in the West. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I got this specific model and also the process of getting it unboxed and moved through my house and into this shed. So let's talk about this model specifically. This is pretty much the biggest benchtop size lathe that is available for hobbyists. Once you start going up into the bigger sizes, especially the ones with gear heads, the weight becomes much, much bigger. This is about 240 kilograms. You can probably get it down to about 200 kilograms if you take off the chuck and the towel stock. That definitely does make it a little bit easier to lift. But I think that if you are thinking of buying one of these lathes and you're like me, where you're just going to be moving it yourself and maybe you've got to take it through your house. I'm in a terrace, so I don't have side access or anything like that. So I have to bring it through the various different elevations in my house to get it into my shed. I think for a first time mover, this was probably at the limit as to what I felt comfortable moving. 200 kilograms, you know, with an engine crane, which I did also buy. I got that from eBay. I got a very, very cheap engine crane. I think any more than like 200, 300 kilograms, it would have been very, very sketchy doing it by myself. And I just generally hate having to ask people for help and, you know, get them to arrange a time when they're free and those type of things. Usually I just like to do it in the daytime when a lot of people are working, because this is kind of my job. So yeah, I like to just do it by myself. So I think a 200 kilogram machine thereabouts was a good first moving project. So this has 11-inch swing and it has 29 inches between centers, but obviously that 29 inches, it does become shorter once you add things into the chuck and you obviously add chucks into the towel stock. That does become shorter, but as you can see, I mean, I've got the chuck on, I've got the towel stock extended, and I've got a drill chuck on there. I've got a decent amount of space here. So I feel the distance between centers is more than enough for what I'm probably going to be working on. It has your typical carriage and it has the compound and the cross slide set up. It's actually quite a nice wide cross slide. I will be swapping out the compound for a solid tool post, and also I'm going to be swapping out this tool holder for a multifix quick change. So this comes with the standard features that you see in these models. We've got hardened ways. We have a variable speed control for the motor. And you have gear selections here, which will allow you to do threading and will change the feed of this carriage and also the cross slide. So the big features that convinced me to get this specific lathe were the D1-4 Camlock spindle. So that basically just makes it much, much easier to swap chucks. And you'll see a lot of people with backing plates where they're kind of undoing bolts to release this. This is very, very simple. It just has 3 cams that you just loosen and then you can just tap it with a hammer. You can get out the chuck and then you can replace it. So here's an example of a D1-4 chuck. You can see that you've got the cams at the back here, just got 3 of them. And yeah, they just push into the holes and then you just lock the cams and then it's fixed in place. So really, really simple. You know, working with my CNC and my drill press, I realized that the more you can make things simple in terms of work changing and tool changing, the better experience you're going to have of working on these things, and it does also save a huge amount of time. The other reason why I got this specific model was that it has a 38mm spindle bore. So that means that obviously you can pass through bits of stock and it can be as large as 38mm, which is nice. And you will see that the models below this, so this is the 290, the other models below it are the 250, the 210. They are smaller, and I probably would have preferred one of those as a starter machine because they are quite a bit cheaper, but you lose the D1-4 Camlock and you also have a 26mm spindle bore. So those are things that I could definitely foresee annoying me in the future, because I watched many, many videos of, you know, things that people wish they could upgrade on their lathe, and those were 2 things that were mentioned a lot in people's experiences with using these small lathes. So mine come with a 2-axis DRO. This is Sino brand DRO, so they are pretty reputable as being quality DROs. And I've got it on the carriage and I've also got it on the crossfeed. So it's a 2-axis And yeah, I mean, I've just been using it today basically to make this first part, and yeah, I can't imagine not having a DRO already. The other feature that convinced me to get this one was the fact that it has powered crossfeed and also powered carriage feed. Now, even with just making this first part, this little thumb screw that I've made, I did originally try to just hand feed it with the wheels, and straight away that got a little bit annoying and the surface finish was not great. I switched on and got used to using these levers to operate the carriage and the crossfeed, and the surface finish is so much better. You get such a better consistent cut. Now I know that obviously doing it by hand, you can get that consistent feel of it once you get skilled, but to be honest with you, I much prefer using the Powerfeed. It's just kind of one less thing to worry about. Now with the Powerfeed, it is actually driven by this hex bar. Now the cheaper machines are driven by the lead screw, but they do have a keyway channeled in them which drives the Powerfeed. So it's not actually using the lead screw, the cheaper machines. Some of them do not have a keyway and they are using the lead screw, and that is just generally bad practice because it means that you're going to wear the lead screw out quicker, and that is what you want for when you need to do your threads. And you want to keep it as precise as possible with as little wear as possible when you are cutting the threads. So that is why you have this separate power feed, and this is the lead screw, and it does come with these covers as well, which is nice. Now another thing as well with Amadeal and I think Warco as well in the UK is that they do offer test reports, accuracy test reports for these machines. So these machines, before we receive them, they are tested for the accuracy and they're within a certain tolerance. I can show you what it looks like, the sheet that you get when you buy one of these. And yeah, I've not actually done any sort of testing yet in terms of the accuracy because I've literally just placed it on this bench and I just want to get cutting some metal. But I'm going to test all of these measurements that they've taken with my dial indicator, and I'm going to see how accurate it is. So far though, with just using it to cut these little bits of steel, I've been very impressed with it, and it is certainly cutting it to the dimensions that I need. The biggest cut that I've taken is a 3mm depth of cut with some high-speed steel, and it cut through it without any issues. It did not sound like it was struggling at all. So I think this machine is certainly capable. Now let's talk a little bit about the unboxing and my experience with this. Before we do that, I want to quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. If you need any type of fabrication from PCB etching to CNC machining, PCBWay can help you bring your design into reality. Or maybe you just need advice on how to bring a product to market, PCBWay can even help you with that with their turnkey OEM services, ranging from proof of concept prototyping to full design, assembly and distribution. Whatever it is you need, PCBWay have you covered. It arrived in a big pallet. Now I was worried that the courier was just going to kind of like dump it on the road, but luckily they have motorized pallet trucks. Even though we have drop curbs here in the UK, they're still not completely flush with the road, so you still have to kind of like lift it up a little bit. Luckily, he's got a motorized pallet, so he was able to just bring it up onto the pavement and then into my driveway. Now, unfortunately, it had to sit outside for a week because I ordered an engine crane from eBay and it was lost in the post, so I had to get another one sent to me. I got the cheapest engine crane that I could find. It is a Switzer 2-ton engine crane, and to be honest with you, I was actually pleasantly surprised with the finish and the quality of that. It worked fine. I probably wouldn't trust lifting 2 tons with it, but for this, like 250 kilograms, it was okay. So I unpacked it from the wooden crate, and then just using my own hands, I was able to swivel the tailstock end out from the pallet, and then I was able to get the lathe in between the engine crane legs, so that then I could lift it up, I could take off the pallet, and then I could put it onto a little skate that I had made just from a sheet of plywood and some caster wheels. Then I used just some ramps, and I got it up into my house and then through my house, and then I've got quite a deep step, probably about 20 centimeters between the floor in my house and then the garden patio flooring. So I just used some pallets and some ramps. And this was a little bit precarious because I was doing it by myself, and I didn't want it kind of just rolling down and crashing. So I put some soil bags at the ends of the pallets just so it had something to run into. And I also strapped some kettlebells to the end of it, just to kind of like have some sort of counterbalance so it doesn't just roll and crash into my garden patio. But then I got it through the garden, and again, I just built a ramp and then pushed it up into the shed. I built this stand. Now, you do have the option of actually getting a stand with this model. I was thinking of getting one, but I decided not to, purely because I just didn't want to spend the extra money. But I'm actually really glad that I didn't, because I completely forgot that most of those stands, and my experience with this with most machines, is that generally they're built for an average height person. Now, I'm quite tall. I'm pretty sure that that stand would have been too low for me. If you're wondering of what height that you want to have your lathe, generally you should have your carriage wheel at your elbow height, because that is where you're going to be standing most of the time, and that's what you're going to be using. So as you can see, I've actually built this quite tall. I mean, this table is, I think it's 93 centimeters in height, and then you've got about 10-15 centimeters to the carriage wheel, and obviously the compound and the cross slide is a little bit higher. But yeah, that's kind of the general height that you want to go. So I'm glad that I didn't actually buy the stand, because yeah, I really didn't think of that. And it does mean that this table is actually a little bit wobbly. It's not the ideal setup. The table itself is very, very sturdy. I've built this out of 2x4 timber, and it is reinforced everywhere. It's not the actual table, it's just the fact that it is just so top heavy that it is just rocking. I am going to just fix it to the studs in this wall just to stop it from rocking. I haven't actually fixed it down into the bench yet, because I'm not too sure of whereabouts I want it. So I'm just going to use it for a few months, and then I will eventually fix it into this table. I would say the most scariest part was definitely lifting this up onto this bench. Now, luckily I've got a skylight above me, and my engine crane was at the very limit, and thankfully I had enough height because of the skylight to actually get this up. If I built this bench any higher, I probably wouldn't have got it onto it. I don't know what I would have done. I would have had to have built a smaller table and then rearranged the engine crane. It would have been a complete and utter pain in the arse. But thankfully I was able to get it up. Now, lifting it up, you know, a meter from the ground, I was very, very nervous that something was going to snap, something was going to slip, and it was just going to tip over. I think that you've got to worry about not necessarily the lathe tipping like this, but because it is so top heavy, because you have the spindle and you've got the motor here, it kind of like rock like this. So there was a point where, yeah, it did feel like it was it wanted to tip this way. Luckily I had my partner just to kind of like hold it. You don't need to do much with it, you just need to stop it from kind of like spinning and those type of things. But yeah, that was definitely the scariest point, lifting it up. And as I said, I really wouldn't have liked to have been lifting up something that was, 400 or 500 kilograms. I was looking at the old English machines, stuff like, the Colchesters, the Harrisons, but they are like 600-700 kilograms. And doing that by myself, yeah, I'm really glad that I did opt for a bench lathe. As I said, this is probably the limit that I would have felt comfortable with. I just don't think I would have been able to have got the big old English machines moved. And just to talk a little bit about, should you buy old or should you buy new, and kind of like the thought process that I went through. A lot of the older machines, I think the ways are not hardened, and obviously they are going to be susceptible to wear. If you can go to the places and you can check out the machines, and you can take measurements and that sort of things, then I probably would have felt comfortable buying used. The problem with me is that I'm just outside of London. There's really not much here in the south for machines that come up. A lot of it is in the north. I don't drive, so I just have to buy it, get it couriered to me, and just hope that this machine is going to be okay when I receive it. Also, just little things like when you buy it from a company, the delivery usually comes with it. And as I said, they've got a proper setup. They have, motorized pallet trucks, they've got tail lifts and all those type of things, so moving it really isn't a problem. If you're moving an older machine yourself, it is usually, it's got to be taken from maybe a factory, or it's got to be taken from someone's shed. You've got to move it yourself, and it was just going to be so much palaver to get one of these older machines rigged up and moved, having to travel there and check it out, having to travel there and actually then move it. I thought, you know what, first time buying it, let's just get it new, and let's just get something mid-range in terms of the size and the weight of it. And I'm really glad that I did choose this model. One negative to say, and it's not really anything to do with the company that I bought it from, the first time I turned it on, the control board blew. It made a huge bang. I saw some sort of spark come from the back here. It scared the life out of me. And yeah, I was really annoyed because I really wanted to like get it moved into my shed and start using it. It blew, so I wasn't sure if I was going to have to send it back. So it just stayed in my living room for about a week and a half. But props to Amadeal, their customer service has been amazing and I can highly recommend them as a company if you are thinking about buying a new lathe in the UK. Their responses were always very, very quick. They ordered a new control board from China. It got shipped to them in about 5 days and then they sent it next day to me and I installed it, which was very easy. It's just a case of plugging out a few connectors and just swapping it over. And thankfully it has been working fine since then. But yeah, I want to say thank you to Luke, who is the guy who's been speaking to me and helping me out with this one that I've bought. I think this was actually the last one that they've got on their website at the moment. If you look, it's actually been taken off. I have been told, I think they're getting stock for this one, the 290, I think in like February or March time. So if you go onto their website, you won't actually see this model at the moment because they don't have any in stock. So it is still available from them, but yeah, you just need to pre-order it. And if you are interested, I would send them an email and ask if you can be put on some sort of waiting list. Now, if you're in the UK and you're wondering about what company to choose, there are a few companies and I did a lot of research before I was buying it. You've got Warco, you've got Amadeal, you've got Chester, and you've got Optimum, which are sold generally by XL, which they are also made in China, but I think they've got like a German, part of the company in the actual Chinese factories that are doing quality checks and those type of things. So those are higher priced. I think Amadeal are probably definitely one of the cheapest, but obviously the reason why it's cheaper is because you don't get things like a 4-jaw chuck and you don't get the steady rest. But to be honest with you, you can pick those up like secondhand used for quite cheap. And I didn't really want to buy, some cheap Chinese chucks and bits and pieces because I wanted to try and get hold of some secondhand stuff just to save some money and also to just buy a better quality stuff. So here's one example of that. I mean, the package that I got it's about £700 cheaper than what you get for the Warco model, which is the 290. And you don't get a 4-jaw chuck with this one. I was able to pick up this. It looks like it's been unused. It's practically brand new. This is a Pratt Bernard 4-jaw chuck with the D1-4 Camlock. So this is, a million times better than the Chinese brand stuff that you're going to get. And you can get stuff like this for pretty cheap. And with that 700 saved, I obviously spent it on the 4-jaw chuck, but then I also picked up another bargain recently. There was a very nice guy local to me who was selling a load of chucks for, I think it was £100 on eBay. And I mean, I've got loads of the Jacob chucks. I've literally got a bag full of chucks down here. Within it was a really nice Albrecht chuck. This is made in Germany. This is absolutely amazing. Just feeling it straight away, the mechanism of it, you can just tell it's a million times better than the Chinese stuff. I've got a German Rome chuck, and I've got things like this. In there this is a Gamut. I think they are French, but this is a Live Center. These are all very, very expensive back in the day, and they're very high quality tools. And you can get all of these things for pretty cheap if you keep a lookout. But yeah, that's why I wanted to get the cheapest model possible. I didn't really care about the extras that come with the more expensive packages because this is what I was planning to do. So lastly, I just want to talk about some of the things that you should buy straight away if you are buying a lathe. I was kind of delayed in making this first part, which is this little thumb screw, purely because I just didn't order the accessories that I needed straight away. And I was just kind of putting it off buying it. But I've had to buy quite a lot of bits and pieces. So I'm just going to go over the things that I've bought that you will need straight away. And then also a few little extra bits and pieces that I am going to buy just from using this in the first day. I've used this for 1 day and already things are starting to annoy me, and I realized that I need to get them fixed so I can actually be productive on this machine. So I'm gonna stick with high-speed tooling. You do have the options of using carbide or high-speed. High-speed is cheaper and you can grind and sharpen things yourself, which some people find annoying, but I mean, I'm quite used to sharpening things. I quite like the process of sharpening things. And just today, actually, I sharpened my first bit and it was fine. It took me a few minutes, and I'm also going to 3D print a jig so I can get the angles proper as well. And that's going to speed up the process of grinding these tools. I got a very cheap, this is just £20. This is just a little knurler. And I mean, it does do an okay job. Not too well in steel. This one didn't really work too well because I didn't do the dimensions properly. In aluminium though, it does a really, really good job. I would probably get something that gives you a little bit more leverage to apply a little bit more pressure when you are working with steel. Another thing that I haven't bought yet, but I need to buy straight away, is a tailstock die holder. The reason being is that I did want to do single point threads because it's just something I wanted to experiment with. But I opened this up, and as soon as I just looked at the gears and realized I had to just take them all apart and change them, I don't think I'm ever going to do it. I just cannot be bothered to, have downtime on this machine and to spend, probably, 30 minutes to an hour changing out all of these gears, getting all the backlash right. I know that I'm just not going to enjoy that process. So I will stick with dies for doing threading. I can completely understand why everyone says that in videos now, that, generally you don't really do single point threading unless you really, really have to, because you've got dies to do it and because changing gears is just a complete nuisance. So a tailstock die holder is something that you will need, definitely. And then the other thing is a quick change tool post. So just before making this video, I have ordered a PeWe Tools multifix. There are a few options for quick change tool posts. PeWe Tools is a German brand. I believe that the parts are made in China, and then Peter of PeWe Tools, I believe he probably does his own quality controls because he has done some refinements to the multifix system. So it isn't just something that is being brought over from China. I believe that they have actually kind of altered and improved the design of the multifix. So it's one of the few that isn't just a copied version of the multifix. It is actually a kind of what appears to be a better design. You've got PeWe Tools, and then you'll see everyone in forums mentioning Createtools. These were a Chinese brand that were making the multifix. They got good reviews, and the quality did seem to be good. But over the last few years, no one has heard from them. They're not replying to emails. And I did some digging around, and I did see in a forum post, someone mentioned that I believe the owner, who was an old person, I think they died during COVID, and the younger people in the family, they're not really interested in carrying on that side of the business. They're doing other things. So it doesn't actually say anything on the website, but I think Createtools, they're ceased trading basically, which is a shame. And then you've got AXA, which I believe is made in Germany. They are a little bit more expensive. And then you've also got ones on AliExpress, which I'm not sure what type of design they're using, but it looks like they're all just kind of copying the multifix. And as I said, I think PeWe Tools is the only one that are kind of doing their own improvements and modifications. And also he has designed like custom tool holders for the multifix system. So to me, it seemed like a more robust and improved system to go with. So that is what I went. I ordered a size A, and I think I've got like 5 tool holders coming with it. So that is gonna really help because using this type of tool post is, again, it's a pain in the arse, swapping over pieces and using shims and all those type of things. I did it for half an hour today and I'm already sick of it. So that is definitely something that you're gonna need to buy. And then probably the last upgrade will be switching out the compound for a solid tool post. At the moment, I haven't actually seen any issues with the cuts that I'm making and this compound, but I know that everyone does scream about the improvements in rigidity by using a solid tool post, so I probably will make one, but I probably will wait until I've got a milling machine to work on that. The last thing, which will probably be a future upgrade because there is probably not a need for it at the moment because I'm going to be using dies, but is to install an electronic lead screw, and this will allow me to directly control the lead screw with a separate motor. It won't be driven from the main motor and using gears to down gear it. It will be like a stepper or a servo motor that is individually driving that lead screw. Again, I'm not sure the need for it at the moment because it looks like I can probably do a lot with just using dies and a die holder. And then the next thing I'll probably get is some sort of coolant. I've just been using a squeezy bottle with my CNC coolant here. And I think I will probably go with some sort of like flood or mist coolant for the cutting because it definitely helps. Other little things is you will need an oil can, and I did a lot of research as to what oil you should be using on the lathe. You want to try and look for a slide-way oil. So it's designed to specifically be used on horizontal ways, and it is an oil with just a little bit of stickiness to it. So it does stick to the ways. Oh, and make sure that you get some sort of dial indicator and a indicator for it. I have gone with the Noga brand. It is expensive. This was, I think, about £110 just for the arm. But so far, you know, I've really liked it, and I've heard everyone just saying, you know, once you use one of these, you won't go back to the cheaper ones because they move. You know, once you crank this arm, it really does not move, and I love the fine adjust. I'm probably going to pick up a cheap Chinese one because I would really like to do a comparison to see if it is actually that much better, because I do have Chinese arms like this on my camera setup. Yeah, I don't have an indicator on them, but they seem pretty stable. But I think it will be an interesting comparison, so we'll probably do that in the future. So hopefully that helps someone who is in the same position that I've been for the last few years, researching as to what machine to buy, you know, what machine can I get into my house, am I going to be able to lift it myself, what extra things do I need. It's been a very long journey to get here, but I am very happy that I've finally got a lathe and I can finally actually cut some metal, which is really exciting. The only question I've got is cleaning the lathe. I'm not too sure how to approach it. I would love anyone to put in the comments how exactly you clean these, because I mean, it's very difficult to get a brush underneath and to sweep away all of these chips. At the moment, I'm just kind of using my hand with a glove and just kind of like scooping it up. But, you know, I'm using quite a lot of, you know, like water soluble coolant, which I guess is kind of like flood. And I'm just wondering kind of like, yeah, how you would set it up. I guess you would put maybe like a drain into it so it can drain away the flood coolant. But then also with the oil, you know, do you wipe it down and do you wipe down the chips? Because the problem with this whey oil is that because it's sticky, you do get a lot of chips stuck into the oil. It's very difficult to get these wheys, you know, completely spotless before I put on some oil. So I'm just wondering, you know, if it's okay to have little bits of metal mixed in with the oil. I'm guessing it's probably not, but yeah, I'd really like any sort of tips or advice on ways to clean it, and, you know, how I should be thinking about the coolant side of things. Go with flood, or, you know, maybe go with mist. I probably would prefer flood because mist, you know, it can create an atmosphere in here that I would probably not want to be breathing. But anyway, I'm sure I can research it as well and probably find the answer to it. So that is it for today. Hopefully you found this useful. But any questions or comments below, it would be nice to hear from people that are using these type of machines and what type of things and accessories they've really enjoyed, or things that I need to get. I think I've covered pretty much all of them, but maybe there's something I'm missing. Stay tuned for more lathe videos. But that's it. I'll catch you later.